Hey everybody, it's Joe and welcome back. Today we're going to be reviewing the Ninja Dual Brew Pro specialty coffee system. So you ready? Let's get into this. Just to make you aware before we get started, this review is based on my personal opinion, and therefore all my praises and gripes are going to be based upon what I personally feel is important. Those things might be a little bit different for you, so what I would recommend is after you watch our video, go ahead and check out a couple of other ones just so you can get a full range of different people's thoughts. That way you can make a really good informed buying decision. With that being said, let's check this coffee maker out. So what we're going to do first, I'm going to take you on a tour of all the functions of this coffee maker here. And as we go through each feature, I'll critique them at the same time. Alright, first thing to note is Ninja does make very good looking products. They do use lots of plastic in their stuff, so durability is suspect, but for the price that you pay, you gotta kind of expect that too. Turning this on, you'll notice that everything is touchscreen display. You got your start button here, that you push that in and that will start your brew. And you can use the dial here to change different brew sizes. And these will update depending on what function we have set right now. Right now we're set in the K-Cup mode, as you can see right there. So you only have a handful of different options here for brew sizes. Right here you have a drip stop switch. As you can see, it's open right now. If I were to flip it down to here, then it would be closed. That would close the drip compartment up here so nothing would flow down. A lot of coffee makers have an automatic drip stop. This does not. So if you had this open and you're brewing coffee and you pull your carafe out, it's going to keep pouring down through there. So that's something to note. And it's also the first gripe that I have. I really wish that this would have been automatic and not so much something to where I had to stop it myself, because you're invariably going to pull that carafe out thinking it's going to stop the brew and it's going to pour down onto the hot plate. A lot of coffee makers have that, and it's usually just a little spring-loaded dealie that goes up here, and when the carafe pops out, it just kind of slides down and stops the brew from coming out. Up here you have your different brew styles. You can be set to classic. You can change it to rich, which is going to brew a little bit thicker. You can set it to over ice, and that's going to be for something when you're trying to brew an iced coffee or an iced tea or something like that. That'll also brew stronger so the ice doesn't dilute your drink as it melts. The last style here is specialty mode, and that's going to be for something like a cappuccino or espresso or something like that. And as you can see, if you're set to specialty, you are limited to 4 ounces. So really it's going to be a super strong shot. That makes a lot of sense, because if you're brewing a cappuccino, you need that coffee to be really strong so it doesn't get overtaken by the milk. Down here you have a self-clean mode, and then up here you can see that it's in K-Cup mode. There's 3 different modes actually. There's the K-Cup mode, and we have a switch here on the side that'll turn it to hot water mode. When that's turned on, we get the hot water indicator here, and you'll notice we got 2 water temperatures, either boil or hot. This you can just pour hot water in for like a hot cocoa or something like that. And up here you can get boiling hot water for something like oatmeal. And as you can see, when we switched over to water, since we're not on the K-Cup anymore, all of the different sizes are available once again. And they're all represented by both ounces and by pictures. So you've got a full brew, which is a full carafe. You can see right there, that's 60 ounces. Then as you get down to 32, that's a half a carafe. Then you get down here to 24, and that's a standard size for a stainless steel travel cup. And then down here, you've got your regular size cup of coffee, which is 12 ounces, 8-ounce cup, and then all the way down to 2 ounces. If you were going to pour into the carafe, you would leave this here. If you were going to pour into a travel cup, you would just set that right on the hot plate here. And if you were going to pour an individual cup, this slides down like this, and the cup would just sit right on top of here. As far as the carafe goes, there's a couple of things I like about this. Number one, it pours really well, and you'll see that later. It doesn't spill or drip or anything like that, so that's a big plus. Number two, if we remove the lid here, what this means is when you brew your coffee, it's gonna brew and it's gonna come out and fill from the bottom of the carafe. And the good thing about that is it's gonna help mix the coffee here in the carafe, so you don't end up with that problem where you got heavily brewed coffee down at the bottom and it gets more watery as it gets to the top of the carafe when it's filling up. It fills from the bottom, so it's automatically gonna mix it as it pours in here. Another thing about this carafe is you can't really tell, but it's got dual walls here. So this is insulated. The other night I set this to brew at 2 o'clock in the morning because my wife gets up really early. And by 8 o'clock when I came down to get some coffee, it was still hot. Now I mentioned before that we're in K-Cup mode, but if we want to brew a whole pot of coffee, there's just one adjustment we have to make. You can see that this piece here is for the K-Cups. So this has to be removed in order to brew a regular pot. So you just push that back, and this entire piece here lifts right out of the coffee maker. and that leaves your basket exposed here, which is where you put your paper filter. The Dual Brew Pro does come with a bag of paper filters. Just a little small gripe there, I would have preferred that it came with a permanent filter, but most coffee makers don't, and that's an accessory you end up having to buy, so I'm not going to really knock them too much about that. And now that's back in there, once you have your filter in and you put your coffee grounds in, this lever back here just slides on forward and you close it right up. This piece can be removed to clean, and to do that you would actually just lift this up back here and then you would slide this completely off like that. Once we close this up, you'll see that the bean indicator's on here. And once we go to our different brew styles, now it's opened up all the different sizes, because as far as this is concerned, we can brew any size that we want now. Once again, we have all these different brew styles that we can use, and on the dial, everything is available. And once again, if you're using a carafe, you can use any size brew, but you're probably going to be using anywhere from 28 ounce up to the full 55. And once again, when you're using the beans, if you're going to be using a travel cup, you'd set it there and you'd put in your travel cup like so. And if you're going to be brewing a cup, slide that down and your cup would go right there. This shelf right here has got some nice rubber padding on it, which is a welcome feature, because that way that cup's not going to slide around on you. One thing about this shelf, keep in mind you are using plastic parts, so you don't want to just be pushing down on this thing, you might break it. It does feel pretty solid, and I can't imagine that there's going to be any cup that ever goes on here that's going to risk breaking that or anything, but it is something to think about, especially after you've had it for a little while, because plastic has a tendency to get weak over time. So in other words, just be careful with that. Over here we have that hot water selector switch that we were messing with earlier. And here you have a little stowaway scoop. It's got a couple of measuring cup sizes on here, along with ounce sizes and pictures and the number of scoops that you would need. This is a nice little perk and it shows a lot of attention to detail. I was really impressed that they included this, so good for Ninja. Right here we have an integrated milk frother. This has its own individual power, you can hear that. And this will give you nice foamy milk. The fact that this unit has this on there is really, really cool. I like that a lot. This part can be twisted off to be cleaned and put back on again. Two things about this though. This is just an agitator. It does not heat the milk. There's milk frothers that you can get that will heat the milk and foam it at the same time. And if you ever had a dedicated cappuccino machine, they have the metal arms that come out on the side, and those actually steam the milk and froth it at the same time. This is definitely not that. So if you want hot milk froth, you have to go ahead and throw that in the microwave first, then bring it out here and then froth it up with this. Another thing I'm not crazy about is that this button only works if you're holding it down. So you have to hold it down, hold the glass in there, and then when you get done, you can go ahead and release it. That's not really a problem because it only takes about 30 seconds or so to froth your milk, but it would be really nice if this had a switch in it where you can just kind of push it and let it go, and then push it again to turn it off. So that's a little bit of a negative, but not really a super big one. Coming around the other side of the machine, we have our water reservoir. This is removable, just like this. As you can see, there's water in it, but there's a plug in the bottom to keep the water from pouring out that direction. And as you can see on the front, there's markings for different sizes of brews and how much water we need to have in here. The whole thing will hold 60 ounces of water here. Now the water reservoir does sit here on the right side of the machine, and it's pretty narrow, so it doesn't take up a whole lot of room. However, Ninja decided to give you the option to be able to swing this out to the back of the machine to save space. So to do that, there's just a little plastic insert that pops out right here. And then you're going to slide it over, set this piece back in, and then set your reservoir back here now on the back. And as you can see, that makes the coffee maker much more narrow. From the front, it makes it a lot harder to get to the reservoir back here, but it does give you the option to thin this thing down a little bit if you've got counter space problems. That's a really smart design choice on Ninja's part, and I really applaud them for doing that. So the first thing we're going to try is using the K-Cups. We'll slide that out of the way, put our K-Cup module back on, throw this guy in here, and we'll brew this up. We're just going to put this on just classic, and we'll just do a 12-ounce brew. Ninja advertises that brewing K-Cups on their machine is much faster than on any of the Keurig coffee makers. It does have several injectors that pierce the top of the K-Cup, unlike Keurig machines that usually just have one. So we know it's getting the water in there quicker, and also a lot more even as well. And as you see that finished up, I did a full 12-ounce brew, which is this whole cup. And that came out pretty quick. I would say that's faster than the Keurig machine, but I'd have to kind of set them up next to each other to test that out just to see for sure. But in any case, that was pretty fast and pretty good. Next, we're gonna do an iced coffee in our travel mug here. So we gotta remove this. That's another critique that I have, is that this has to be removed if we're gonna do a regular pot of coffee. A lot of these types of machines don't require you to remove parts in order to do that. However, this Ninja machine has a much smaller footprint than a lot of those machines as well. So that's something you have to decide for yourself if it's worth it, because if this isn't on the machine, you're gonna have to find a place to store it. For me, no big deal. I'll put it in the filter. And we want a nice strong iced coffee, so I'm just gonna put a couple of large scoops in. And then this just slides forward, set it to the travel mug, put that up. And we're just gonna set this to over ice, and we'll do 18 ounces. By the way, if this is your first time here and you wanna learn some cool new recipes, get some great cooking tips and tricks and all sorts of other kitchen related things, then start now by subscribing to the channel and clicking the notification bell so you never miss a thing. On the indicator lights here, you can see it coming around here, and that's just kind of telling you how far along it is. And when it gets done, it'll beep at you like that and tell you that it's finished. Now, so a little creamer in there. Now it'd be good to go. So the next thing we're gonna try is a little bit of hot chocolate. So we flip that down. Got a little pack of hot chocolate here that's got the marshmallows in it. And in this case, we're just gonna wanna put some hot water in. Set that to hot water, and we'll just set this to 10 ounces and let it go. Now you can see when we poured the hot water, I actually had this set to closed and it went ahead and poured anyway. Unlike most coffee makers, this isn't just shooting hot water through the same system. You don't have to worry about coffee grounds getting into your hot water because it's not coming from there anyway. And there's our hot chocolate, but I don't see any marshmallows. I got one. Okay, now we can try a little bit of oatmeal here. Just put that back on there. We're gonna wanna set the water to boil. And just depends on how you like your oatmeal, how soupy you want it. I'm gonna say 8 ounces of water is plenty here. Now that's done, we'll just set this aside for a little bit and see what happens. As you can see, after a couple minutes, this oatmeal turned out pretty good. I had a little bit too much water in there, but that's actually kind of the way I like oatmeal, so no problem. However, even though we had this on the boil setting, the water wasn't quite boiling temperature. It was really hot, but I wouldn't call it a boil either. Okay, next we'll try a little bit of cappuccino. I don't have any espresso beans right now, so we'll just make it really strong coffee. And we'll just change this to specialty. And like I mentioned before, when you're on specialty, you can only do 4 ounces. Now I've noticed that when you're doing the small brews, especially the specialty ones, the machine stops and starts several times. And I was gonna be a little bit annoyed at that, but actually what that's doing is it's only squirting a little bit of water in over the coffee grounds at a time, just to get them saturated. And that shoots a little bit more water in a little bit at a time, and that way you get a much stronger brew. So if that's the way you gotta do it, then I guess that's fine. And then it's over. And as you can see, I don't know if you can tell by this, but that is really, really thick. So now we have to froth some milk for this. So we gotta pop this open. You're gonna wanna put just the tip of the frother down below the surface here, just like that. It's actually producing a pretty nice froth here. I'm pretty happy about that. Let's go ahead and pour that milk in. And that looks like a really nice result here, actually. Remember, this thing doesn't heat that milk. It's only frothing it up, so if you want hot milk going into here, you have to microwave that milk a little bit first, then you bring it over here and froth it at the end. So the only thing we really have left to try is brewing a carafe. So go ahead and flip that up, throw in the carafe. I've already put the beans in. Flip that to open. We're gonna just go put this on classic. We'll just do a half a carafe here and see how that works. If you'd like to learn a little bit more about Joe's Phenomenal, you can watch a couple more videos, or you can check us out online at joesphenomenal.com. Okay, so that took about 7 minutes to do 37 ounces, which is about right because it takes about 9 minutes, almost 10 minutes to brew a full carafe. And there's no drips or anything. It's actually a nice consistent pour out of the carafe. So we're not making a mess anywhere. So that seems pretty good too. Another critique we have of this machine is that this right here, that's not a hot plate. It's just a stand. As you can see, I just brewed that pot of coffee. That's not warm at all. Normally, I would think that that would be a big problem, but in the case of the Ninja Dual Brew Pro, your carafe here is insulated, so all the contents of this are going to stay hot for a pretty long time anyway. So really the hot plate's not necessary because we're not using a glass carafe. So to me, that's a little bit of a non-issue. The only other features we haven't covered is the cleaning, number one. And with this, you can run descaling just like any decent modern coffee maker. The only other feature here is delay. And what that is scheduled brewing. So I'd go ahead and load up my coffee grounds, close that up, and hit the delay button. Pick my time. I've already set this to 2:30 before. It will remember the last time that you put into it. And we'll go for 2:30, cycle through. Set the size we want. It's going to be a full carafe. And then I would go ahead and set the type of coffee I want to do. Maybe we'll do classic, leave it at that. And then when we push the start button, then classic will stay lit up, delay will stay lit up. It'll have the coffee being here and it'll look like it's off other than just having the time here. So to recap, the Ninja Dual Brew Pro is a very powerful machine. You can make a variety of things. It's got the built-in frother. It's pretty quick with the K-Cup brewing. It's got a really great insulated pitcher that'll keep your coffee hot for a really long time. The adjustable reservoir, the touch screen, and the included little measuring cups. As far as my gripes go, there weren't very many and they weren't really all that critical. Brewing a full carafe takes about 11 minutes or so, which I felt was a little bit on the slow side. There's no hot plate, but like I said, it's not really necessary because the carafe is insulated. If you're gonna brew coffee grounds, then you have to take out the K-Cup adapter and find some place to put that. And last but not least, the boiling water setting is really hot, but it's not anywhere near boiling. We were using regular oatmeal, and by the time it softened that up enough to eat, it had already cooled down quite a bit. However, we retried that test with instant oatmeal and it worked really, really well. So if you're gonna use this machine to make oatmeal, that's probably the route to go. And really the regular stuff, you're probably gonna wanna cook that stove top or in the microwave anyway. So if you want my opinion, the Ninja Dual Brew Pro specialty system is well worth the money. And if you get this thing, I think you're gonna really like it. I thank you so much for taking a little bit of time out of your busy day to watch our video. It's much appreciated and we hope to see you again really soon. So once again, my name is Joe and I hope you have a phenomenal day. Take it easy.